going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with a look back at the very first week of 2024 in the WWE. I hope you guys had a good New Year. I had a good New Year, including the WWE holiday tour that came through Toronto a couple of days before New Year's. It was a good time. Go back and check out my socials for some photos and videos from that. I will say, on a kind of a sappy note, Seth Rollins at the end calling for the Fireflies in memory of Bray Wyatt was a really cool touch, but also Seth Rollins was getting a lot of CM Punk chants, and CM Punk headed up that Madison Square Garden show that outsold World's End by a 2-to-1 ratio, which was nice news for the end of the year as well. WWE really marketed this whole week of programming as this is how we're kicking off the year. We had Raw Day 1, we had SmackDown New Year's Revolution, and obviously we had the return of NXT New Year's Evil. I think all the shows delivered, perfectly honest with you. I'm not going to go blow by blow through every show because it's 7 hours of television and I don't want to be here talking for like 2 hours, and I don't think you guys want that either. I'm going to touch on some of the key points, some of the indicators as to where we're going for the Royal Rumble before we get to WrestleMania season, but selfishly, I gotta start off with Triple H's big announcement on the bump on Thursday, or what was it? It wasn't the bump, it was the 2024 preview, and it was spoiled for me because he already announced it on Twitter/X before he said it on the network. But you know, they're doing a lot of international shows. They're going to Berlin, Germany. They're going to Lyon, France. They're going to Perth, Australia. They're probably going back to Saudi Arabia because that's part of the deal, and everybody cries about it like they don't know it's a thing. But they're adding to that international calendar, that international schedule for 2024. They're adding Canada. Isn't that nice? I kind of laugh because we're kind of spoiled. We do get them quite a bit, especially here in Toronto. But no more spoiled will we be than in July, when we are getting a three-peat. July 5th, 6th, and 7th, we are getting SmackDown, Money in the Bank, and NXT Heatwave. Now, I love this because I'm going. Let's be real. I'm starting off with this story selfishly and obnoxiously because I will be going to all three of these shows. I like it because SmackDown is easier to go to than Raw. Do you take Monday off because you're going to Raw, or do you take Tuesday off because you just went to Raw? Is always a question for me, just because I don't quite live in Toronto and transportation is an issue. Blah, 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 blah. You guys don't care. SmackDown is a much more digestible show to sit through, especially when you've got more shows coming up the next day. Money in the Bank is something I've never been to. I went to a house show, like I said, in December. There was a cage match, which was neat. It was Damian Priest versus Cody Rhodes. The roar for Cody Rhodes was great, but the roar for Damian Priest was pretty cool as well. I've seen ladder matches. I've seen hardcore matches. I've seen Survivor Series. I went down to Boston for Survivor Series one year, but other than that, I've been to Survivor Series. I've been to WrestleMania. As you guys know, I went to WrestleMania 18 and saw The Rock face Hulk Hogan. It was awesome. I've been to SummerSlams. I've been to, like, other show. What was the last big pay-per-view I went to? Last big pay-per-view I went to was either New Year's Revolution, Final Resolution for Impact, which was at the Don Koloff. Before that, the last pay-per-view I went to was Forbidden Door, which was AEW. So now let's go with the A show. Let's go with Money in the Bank. I have never been to a Money in the Bank, and I think it's going to be awesome. But I'm sorry, as awesome as Money in the Bank is, the key thing for me is NXT Heatwave being the same weekend in the same building, because we are drawing ever closer to NXT getting close to what takeovers used to be, pairing them up with the big pay-per-views, making them part of big WrestleMania weekends like we've done with Stand and Deliver the past couple of years. I would really, obnoxiously, selfishly love to get the news in a couple of days that they are going to rename this NXT TakeOver Toronto 3. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's kind of cool. They're pairing them up like they used to do with the Big Four, which also lends credence to the fact that actually Money in the Bank is one of the Big Five. I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. NXT is in a good place right now. The roster on the main roster is packed, so who could be in Money in the... I mean, by this point, hopefully CM Punk will be the world champion if they know what they're doing. So who goes into Money in the Bank is it's a loaded roster. You are full of opportunities and all that sort of thing. And it's kind of like Elimination Chamber. It's kind of like War Games. It's kind of like the Rumble, where people are going to Money in the Bank for the Money in the Bank matches. So you can get a little bit more experimental, a little bit more hit and miss with the matches on the undercard, because it's bookended. It's top and tailed with the Money in the Bank matches that people are there for. So Money in the Bank's coming to Toronto. That's awesome. NXT, partnered with Money in the Bank, is also coming to Toronto for the first time in a long time. I would really love, if they're going to come to Toronto, for them to come during some of the warmer months, which is July. I would love to see them try to do something in BMO Field. That's where the TFC soccer team plays, and it's right outside Ricoh Coliseum, where they do their house shows. Well, where they do their house shows, and AEW does their quote-unquote big shows. But we don't need to talk about that right now. SmackDown on the Friday, as well as just icing on the cake. I would take the 2 pay-per-views, but if you're going to give me 3 is more than 2. This was huge. This was, I'll be honest with you guys, I came back from a really shit day at work, and all over Twitter was like, hey Spaz, have you seen this? Hey Spaz, have you seen this? Spaz, you're near Toronto. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And I'm like, you guys are thinking of me. That's awesome. And then a couple people at work the next day are saying, hey, well, they don't call me Spaz, obviously, but hey man, you're kind of like the wrestling guy. Have you seen this? I'm like, you guys are all thinking of me. That's gorgeous. That's awesome. This is huge. I think this is absolutely amazing. I could talk for the next 20 minutes about how amazing I think this is. And to have, even though they're in Toronto a lot, to have Toronto be considered as this big, international plan that they have going forward is kind of big as well. Because Perth is going to be awesome. We'll talk about what might happen at Perth in a second. The thing in Paris is going to be interesting. Bash in Berlin is so intriguing to me, because they've never done anything in Berlin. They did the Super Showdown in Australia not that many years ago, so they have been to Australia. That's not exactly cracking new ground. Paris, I have no idea what to expect. Berlin, I have no idea what to expect. So the fact that we're coming back to Canada, which isn't that far for them, and it's still being treated like a big deal, is also kind of cool, because they could just treat this like, hey, we're coming back to Toronto, realistically speaking. But they're not, and I think that's really cool, and I'm looking forward to all of that. Yes, I will get more obnoxious as July gets closer and closer, and yes, you will be inundated with photos and videos from my adventures to the Scotiabank Arena when the time comes. Now, it'll be a heck of a lot different than the house show that I was just at, which was a lot of fun, but house shows are predictable, etc., etc., etc. Huge pop for Rhea Ripley, by the way. Just let me put that one out there. Let's talk about Day 1 Raw. Let's talk about something that most people don't really care about, but I thought was kind of cool. They kicked off the show with Cole and Wade Barrett in the ring doing the rundown of what we can expect that night. Now, they don't need to do this all the time, but I think it's really cool when they do. They experimented with this on NXT quite a bit, where they would have the commentators just sort of standing ringside and sort of announcing what we had to come in the show. It's that one last stitch effort to get the people in the building and the people watching the TV excited before the first match even starts. It's a nice, neat little touch. Excuse me, and I hope they play with that a little bit more. The first match of 2024 on Raw was Nia Jax beating Becky Lynch. Now, on the surface, do I like this? Absolutely not. Becky Lynch is awesome. Nia Jax is there because it winds people up. The argument for this is that, well, Becky Lynch has been on a high for so long. Now she's come up against somebody that can actually beat her. They're making the Rocky comparisons when Rocky faces Drogo from Russia and he has to go back and learn something different and finally defeat the big monster in the end. The problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, is that Nia Jax is shit. And she has a job right now based on how she winds people up, but she winds people up because she's shit, and we'd rather see somebody else. And they tried to build it up. I'll give them the credit. They did all the work that they could with this, with video packages and talking segments and all that kind of thing, trying to make it this big 5-year story of, you know, Becky's been waiting 5 years for revenge for the time that she got her nose broken. But it's like, realistically speaking, Nia Jax, or the person behind Nia Jax, like the Liana Fanene or whatever the hell her name is. Sorry, I know I pronounced that incorrectly. That's not my intention. But she fucked up that night. And now she has a quasi-main event story going with one of the best women on the roster because she fucked up. So we're right on the borderline of, congratulations, you fucked up, here's your prize. And we're right on the borderline of, here's this star that we really want to do cool things going into WrestleMania season. Instead, they've got a noose around their neck, and the name of that noose is Nia Jax. Not a fan. Becky Lynch is doing the best she can to, in my opinion, as I say, she's doing the best that she can to make Nia Jax into this monster, and Nia Jax is just kind of Nia Jackson around. I don't really know what else to say. The whole Becky goes for the leg drop in the ropes, and she gets her with the uppercut, and she bleeds, and then she gets the annihilation, and it's like, okay, the annihilation is just she sits on you. And yes, oh, well, there's historical precedent because, you know, the great champion Yokozuna used to do. First of all, Nia Jax ain't Yokozuna. Fuck off with that nonsense. Okay, I'm going to go on a diatribe here now. There is a narrative there's two narratives from the AEW camp right now. Oh, Eddie Kingston is the new Dusty Rhodes. Okay, let's set that on one side. Oh, Hangman Page versus Swerve Strickland is going to be the modern day Rock versus Austin. If any of you breathe any oxygen into any of that, you can go fuck yourself. But saying that Nia Jax can sit on people because Yokozuna had the bonsai drop is also kind of shit. So she's getting rewarded for fucking up 5 years ago and breaking somebody's face, and now she wins because she sits on people. And that's... If you're a fan of Becky Lynch, and if you want Becky Lynch to be where I want her to be as we get to WrestleMania season, which is going up against Rhea Ripley, which is going to be an awesome match, this is just... It's the polar opposite of where you'd want her to be. And that's disappointing. Now, for the record, I think Rhea Ripley needs to be unstoppable. I think Becky Lynch needs to go into WrestleMania, and beating Becky Lynch needs to be the biggest thing that Rhea Ripley has done so far. Last year it was Charlotte. This year it can be Becky. The following year it can be Bayley, and maybe after that Trasha Skanks can come back and we can beat her too. She can get 4 for 4 on the 4 horsewomen. That's the only reason I would really accept Sasha Banks coming back at this point, because the entire dialogue around that is exhausting. Here's the thing. Okay, now that I've gotten myself onto it, if Sasha Banks comes back to WWE, will I laugh? Yes. Not because I think she's good for WWE, but because AEW fans want her so badly and think she is so great that their loss will be my amusement. Then I'll have to put up with the fact that, okay, now she's in WWE, now nobody I like is going to get over ever. But it will be a brief celebration followed by lots of mourning if she comes back to WWE. If she goes to AEW, I'll feel bad for them too, because the women on that roster are already trying to scramble for a spot. You know, they only get one delegated match a week, and I mean, worst case scenario, one of them walks out with a broken neck. Right, Saraya? Moving swiftly on. Cody Rhodes calls out Nakamura, and we don't get it because Nakamura stalls it out till next week. Now, you guys know this, I'm not even that much of a Cody Rhodes fan, but this Nakamura thing is dragging out like crazy. I do like that he's doing these segments in the back so that he can speak in Japanese and be very expressive in the way that they do that. They do the subtitles so that people can watch it, but also the subtitles mean it's not happening right now. This is all prefab because it's fake, and they're bringing in the anime-style animation while Nakamura describes what he's going to do to Cody Rhodes, which is really cool, really effective, but once again, it eliminates any illusion that this is a back-and-forth conversation, because there's that much production involved in it. One more round of Cody Rhodes versus Nakamura next week. I'm sure will be an awesome match. Nakamura's great. I think him being an asshole is like what he's meant to be. I don't need any more smiley, just happy to be here on my American vacation Shinsuke Nakamura. So him mixing it up with Cody Rhodes, him being a heel, him fucking with people is cool, but let's get to the match. Like, let's just get to the match. And Cody Rhodes, like, for anything that I've ever said about Cody Rhodes, he ain't a bad wrestler by any stretch. So the match next week will be great. It really feels like they're just saying, let's find Cody stuff to do before we hand him his spot at WrestleMania. CM Punk wasn't on the show this week. CM Punk was advertised very heavily for next week's show. That's fine. I can wait till next week for CM Punk. That will be absolutely fine, because there's other big names on this show that we need to talk about. Not going to stay on it too long. Jey Uso and Kofi Kingston took on Imperium because of problems between the two of them before the Christmas break. Kofi Kingston was being Kofi Santa Claus, and then they had an altercation, and now they were supposed to have a match. Vinci came off the top rope into a kick, or Kofi came off onto a kick onto Vinci. I don't remember which way it was. Vinci got rattled. Vinci got his bell rung. Medical team was in there. They stopped the match. Not much to say. I'm not upset that they do this. I did like several years ago where they tried to do it and Samoa Joe got pissed and finished the match anyway, because that was kind of an impactful thing. But I'm with most logical people at this stage. If somebody's got their bell rung, like, we know what it is. This isn't a match that was building to WrestleMania's main event or anything like that. It was a random thrown together team versus sort of a mid-card established team on a random episode of Monday Night Raw. There's no reason to push this past what it needed to be, and there's no reason to risk Giovanni Vinci getting further injured, so we hope he's doing okay. We hope it's nothing more than, I hate the expression, but, he just got his bell rung. You guys know, unless it's a three-man team with Gunther, Imperium isn't exactly my favorite team on the roster. I don't think as a duo they're that exciting, but it doesn't make it any less shit that one of them got hurt. Let's be real for a second. Jey Uso and Kofi Kingston were a fun team for the evening. I think the whole idea that Jey Uso broke off and went to Raw to be by himself and then has tag teamed with just about everybody they can tag team him with isn't doing him any favors as far as breaking off and being a solo guy. I would love it. And I don't think we're going to get it now. I think we're going to get it after WrestleMania, but I would love to see Jey Uso make a run at the Intercontinental Championship. Whether it's held by Gunther or, as a lot of people are predicting, whether it's after WrestleMania and it's held by Chad Gable. Either way, they're both babyfaces, but Jey Uso versus Chad Gable ain't going to be any kind of bad match. And Jey Uso versus Gunther could be very, very different. Speaking of very, very different, Rhea Ripley, I've already talked about her once. She's awesome, but she's also awesome at making other people look awesome. She did it for Zoe Stark recently. She did it for Shayna Baszler recently. And this week, she did it for Ivy Nile. Ivy Nile did not get squashed in this match by any stretch of the imagination. She looked good. Rhea Ripley, for the monster that she is also kind of good at looking like she's momentarily in over her head. She's momentarily shook, questioning herself, whatever. The way this match ended with, Ivy Nile coming up for a top rope something, Rhea hitting her with a headbutt in mid-air, and then cracking her with the riptide. Dominant victory for Rhea Ripley. Gave Ivy Nile a lot of time to show us what she can do, because most of the stuff that she's done on the main roster has been attached to the Creed brothers, which is fine, because they're an act, but the Creed brothers and Alpha Academy are sort of blending into this one big happy-go-lucky faction, which is a lot of fun, because the Creed brothers are a lot of fun, the Alpha Academy are a lot of fun, Maxine Dupree is there as well. I'm being an asshole, Maxine Dupree's fine. But Ivy Nile as a singles competitor is gold, and you could, you've got your powerhouse in Rhea Ripley right now. It sounds like Raquel Rodriguez is going to be out for quite a bit because she went to social media. She's dealing with some kind of severe skin thing, so wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Hope she's doing okay. But with Zoe Stark and Ivy Nile, you've got other people coming for sort of that powerhouse throne, and both of them, and throw Shayna Baszler in there as well, all three of them have gotten a chance to look really good at a Rhea Ripley that is still beating them, but none of them have come across as squashes. So that's really good. My thing is, right now, because I want to see, and this is how the dominoes kind of fall, I want to see Shayna Baszler shine as a singles person. Right now, she's teaming up with Zoe Stark, which we're going to talk about later. I would love to see Zoe Stark and Ivy Nile as a team. If they're going to be a tag team, if they're going to put some focus on the women's tag team division this year, those two, I think, are closer together as far as being a team. Now, does that mean Ivy Nile pulls herself away from the Diamond Mine, from the Creed brothers? I don't know. I don't know how we get there. But if Zoe Stark is going to be in a tag team, I think Ivy Nile is a better opponent for her. Speaking of tag team wrestling, our first return of 2024 was a tag team. And it was the Awesome Truth. And how did we get here? The Miz was set up to run Miz TV. I don't know how he's still doing Miz TV as a babyface, but we'll get there when we get there. He's supposed to interview the entire Judgment Day, but R-Truth comes out and nobody else. And we're playing off this whole R-Truth thinks he's in the Judgment Day, but he's really not. I think it's really good. Excuse me. I think R-Truth is going to be the Sami Zayn of the Judgment Day. He's going to be the one that makes it watchable week to week. They're never going to like him, but they're always going to find him useful. I think that's the way it's going to go. R-Truth comes out. He's getting interviewed by The Miz. The Judgment Day B team, which is Dominic Mysterio and what the hell's his name? JD McDonough. I keep wanting to call him Jordan Devlin still. They come out, they're mad at R-Truth. R-Truth, you don't represent us, blah, 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 blah. Miz suggests that they have a tag team match, and R-Truth is like, yeah, but there's 3 of us and there's 1 of you, and how's that going to work? And da-da. So they have this match, and like I say, Judgment Day B team, McDonough and Mysterio taking on the awesome Truth, but R-Truth is in the neutral corner because he doesn't know whose team he's supposed to be on. There's a little bit of miscommunication between him and his quote-unquote Judgment Day teammates, and he costs them the match, and they win. Miz is celebrating with him in the ring like awesome Truth coming back together is the best thing ever. I like all of this. I like that there's a B team in the Judgment Day because they can eat losses like crazy because we kind of know that that's their job. People like to shit on JD McDonough like he's a bad wrestler, and he's just not. And Dominic Mysterio is great. Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley are great, but these guys can eat all the losses so that, you know, Damian Priest and Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley can come and wipe up all the wins. And then if they have some match that they're all in together, you got JD and Dom that can get pinned, and Judgment Day itself doesn't really look that much the worse for wear. And R-Truth just throws a bit of a spanner in the works and makes it fun. The Miz trying to be a babyface is the same as Charlotte trying to be a babyface, and she's injured as well, so let's wish her all the good that we can. But in her remarks on, I think it was Instagram, she actually mentioned this is the first time she's gotten to have a real go at being a babyface on the main roster, and she's been liking it, and she's been loving being able to come out to the crowd and smile and high-five people and take pictures with people and not feel like it's out of character because she's played a heel for so much of her career. So she's enjoying being a babyface. Other people won't let her be a babyface. They'll say she's bad at being a babyface just because they want her to be the bad guy, because they want to boo her because they've already decided she's bad. That's terrible. Now, also, The Miz is more of a superstar than a wrestler. We all know this. And, you know, wrestling elitists, and I don't mean it like that, have decided like 20 years ago that The Miz is bad, and he's really not. If he wants to take a crack at being a proper babyface, let him do it. It's going to be a goofy babyface because that's what he's good at, and he does this like game show host type persona that's all out there for everybody to see. But like, let people try new things forever and ever and ever. People that got sick of John Cena, people that got sick of Bayley when she was in NXT, were saying, why don't you just let them be heel? Like, they're such good guys, but why don't you let them be heel? Bayley turned heel and became one of the best heels in the company for a little bit. She had her little side rivalry with Michael Cole that was amazing. People were crying for John Cena to try being a heel at least once, and then he kind of trolled them in the Firefly Funhouse match when he came out in the NWO gear. But they finally did what you wanted. So here's these guys that have been heels most of their careers. Let them go the other way. I don't get it. Anyways, Katana Chance and Caden Carter are having a rave house party thing. Piper and Chelsea break into their party and challenge them to a match next week and get champagne thrown in their face. So there's a title rematch next week. That's cool for everybody involved. And I will say as well that there was a tag team match between Zoe and Shayna and Tegan and Natty. Zoe and Shayna won, so I don't know. They kept on saying throughout the course of the match that these two teams are really trying to climb up the ranks to face the current champions, but it was never established as a number one contenders match, so I don't really know. Build up a couple of teams, have a couple of teams have sort of fights within themselves, and then send one of them after Chance and Carter. It's absolutely fine. If you want to talk about New Year's resolutions, I mean, there's a lot that the other company needs to work on, like not sucking. WWE needs to make the women's tag team titles feel like they're worth something. They really do. And later on down the line, whether it's Chance and Carter, whether it's Stark and Baszler, whoever is the champions closer to WrestleMania are probably going to be taking on two representatives of Damage Control, probably the Kabuki Warriors. It's fine, it is what it is. And then The main event was a really, really predictable main event, but it was Rollins versus Drew for the world title. There was a failed cash in by the Judgment Day. There was a failed pin by Drew because he himself over-rotated and put Rollins' foot on the rope there. Judgment Day sort of fucked him up. Everybody had, briefcase shots and claymores and all this kind of thing, and Drew was painted to be so close, and then he was screwed by the Judgment Day, and then so close, and then he screwed himself by rolling his foot over. I think he's eventually just going to go insane. The rumor is, with all the people that are supposedly coming back to WWE, and I'm going to put my sarcasm aside for a second, but Cody came back, Punk came back, Jade has yet to debut. You've got Nathan Frazier on NXT. You've got Brian Pillman Jr., who became Lexus King on NXT. You've got supposedly Andrade coming back. Apparently Black and Miro want out as well. Don't know where that leaves CJ Perry. A couple of other people as well that want to come back home. It is what it is. We're talking about, in every single one of these scenarios, you're talking about somebody who's been in WWE and AEW, so they're now making an educated choice to come back. In the wake of all of those rumors, there is also the rumor that Drew McIntyre wants out, and Drew McIntyre might be looking the other way. So if, as a lot of people have predicted, Drew to sort of go nuts and give me one more shot at the title and I'll put my career on the line if he loses to Rollins one more time, gives Rollins one more boost going into WrestleMania season and makes sort of his quiet exit, you leave on your back and all that kind of thing. That's fine. Other than that, if they don't do that, if he's not leaving, and if that's not the direction they're going, then it's kind of like the Cody Nakamura thing, and it feels like it's gone a match too long. That's just me. No offense to anybody involved, but again, I need to see Rollins doing better things. Rollins versus Punk is coming at WrestleMania. It really is. And Rollins and Punk is going to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania. So there you go. Biggest star you had is now back home, back in WWE, main eventing WrestleMania on one of the nights. But he's not the only one that's probably going to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania, because the one thing, and I left it to the end, the one thing that hung over this entire evening was there might be a former WWE superstar coming back, former WWE champion coming back, and the announcers even announced it awkwardly. They said, and now here we have a returning champion. That's not an announcement, but anyways. And it was Jinder Mahal. And Jinder Mahal came out to shit on America, because of course he did. Came to talk about how he pretty much did a "Let's Make America Great Again" speech, which kind of made me laugh a whole lot. Talked about how people were too into their social media and getting likes and tweets on Twitter and being politically divided and rah, which is all true. Let's be real, and that's not just America. That's, at the very least, all of North America and the rest of the world that I'm not going to touch. And then he got interrupted by The Rock. And The Rock put him down. And The Rock put him down. And The Rock put him down. And he said, if you were one of The Rock's movies, you'd be Baywatch. Because nobody watched Baywatch. And that's great, because not only is that The Rock showing that he can laugh at himself, but he's using him laughing at himself to also laugh at Jinder Mahal. And then Jinder Mahal went on to say, I never saw that crappy movie. It doesn't matter if you saw the movie. And The Rock went through all of his stuff. And you know what? Everybody, every time The Rock comes back, he just goes through all this cliche stuff. And yeah, he does. And you know what? Listen to the audience. I like Seth Rollins. I like CM Punk. I like the Hardys. I like LA Knight. Yeah. I like Shotzi Blackheart. I like Rhea Ripley. I like the Judgment Day as a whole. I like Finn Balor specifically. I love them all, and they're all very popular. Nobody got a pop like The Rock got. Nobody is going to get the crowd doing day one douchebag back and forth like he did. So the crowd still cares. Even if you, sitting angrily behind your Twitter screen, don't care anymore, the crowd still cares. The people that have paid money to sit in those seats still care. And clearly, if you look at the ratings, which as usual are very, very highly above AEW, the people watching on TV care. And clearly you care, because you're probably in those numbers. If you're talking about what happened on the TV, then clearly you're watching the TV. The Rock is The Rock. The Rock can do anything. The Rock got Cookie Puss trending. The Rock got Fruity Pebbles trending. And The Rock survived getting kind of owned by John Cena for having his promo written on his wrist. So we don't need to talk about that. So he basically ran down Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal tried to attack him. He got put down, taken out. You know, it's good for The Rock to be back home if you smell, etc., etc., etc. We all know. Fill in the blank. And then he said the line that set the world on fire and made me laugh. I've talked about this before. The 19-second or whatever it was loss of Daniel Bryan to Sheamus at WrestleMania several years ago. I didn't think it was right for Daniel Bryan to get squashed like that, but I smiled so much because I'm like, in 10 seconds or less, Twitter's going to be on fire, and that's going to be my entertainment from now on. This is kind of the same thing, except it's hinting at something really good that all the wrong people don't like. Because he said, after I leave the show here tonight, I'm really hungry, I'm going to go out and get a bite to eat, and I got a choice where I can sit. I can sit at a booth, I can sit at a bar, or I can sit at the head of the table. And yes, it's cheesy and corny, and it's definitely something out of The Rock's repertoire, but it's like, yes, there's a statement of direction. The Rock is going after Roman Reigns. It's all good in the neighborhood. And then everybody lost their fucking minds. Oh my god, he's coming here to steal Cody's spot. And first of all, until a match is announced for WrestleMania, that spot is only Cody's spot in your mind. I am sorry. Cody is ridiculously popular right now. Cody is the flavor of the moment, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. He is the guy, as much as Sami Zayn is the guy, and as much as some people think Jey Uso is the guy, and as much as the right people think CM Punk is the guy. He is. Rock is not the guy, but he is bigger than the guy. I'm sorry. Draw a span, fill a room of people like equally, people that are wrestling fans, people that are casual wrestling fans, people that are not even wrestling fans. More of them know not John Cena, holy shit. More of them know who The Rock is than know who Cody Rhodes is. Now that's a popularity contest. That's not a who's a better wrestler thing. Roman Reigns versus The Rock is a bigger match. Objectively, is it the match you want to see? No. Is it necessarily the wrestling match that I want to see? No. But objectively, Rock versus Roman is a bigger match. Personally, for me, I'm a Rock guy. Rock can do whatever he wants. Oh, well, he didn't earn it. Okay. But you probably cheer for guys that made their own company so that they could give themselves belts. So let's not throw that stone around too much. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Cody Rhodes, finishing his story. I asked this on Twitter. People are saying, well, Rock came in to fuck up his story. Well, the thing is, Roman Reigns could lose the title before WrestleMania. Don't want it to happen, but it could happen. So, what is finishing the story? Putting that in tight air quotes, because that's what WWE likes to do. Is finishing the story him becoming the WWE champion? Is finishing the story him beating Roman Reigns, which was really a rivalry made up of nothing? Or is finishing the story just continuing to pretend that Cody Rhodes had anything at all to do with the Bloodline and the Bloodline saga that mostly happened while he was still in AEW? What do you mean by finishing the story? What do you mean? Because it's just not. I'll tell you something. From a match perspective, right? Now, if there was no Rock involvement and we got Cody Roman, which we're probably going to get, and we got Seth versus CM Punk, which is also what we're probably going to get, that's fine. Cody Rhodes is a good wrestler. The Rock versus Roman Reigns isn't a wrestling match. The Rock versus Roman Reigns is a spectacle, like The Rock versus Cena was, like The Rock versus Hogan that I was there live to see was. So why cross the streams? Because CM Punk is going to win the Rumble. This is my prediction right now. This is not me telling you facts. This is a prediction. CM Punk is going to win the Rumble. But CM Punk is going to win the Rumble, and he's going to face Seth Rollins, who's on the same show as him. So the only way Cody Rhodes gets to Roman Reigns is if he wins an Elimination Chamber that's co-branded, which is already a little bit messy, and then decides to hop over after losing the Rumble, which should have been his only way to hop over. Now, if he doesn't do that, and if they actually stick to the brand split, which people care or not care about depending on what argument they're trying to make, if you leave Cody on Raw, you do present yourself with a very interesting possibility. Do Roman and Rock, and I will say this, I'm not a fan of whoever faces Roman being the Night 2 main event. I think if you want people to take that world title seriously, that world title needs to main event Night 2. Not just because, CM Punk's going to win and that should be the last thing we see, but that's a personal view. Once again, do Rock Roman on Night 1, and on Night 2, I don't care how you get there, Rollins versus Punk versus Cody. There's so many stories there. And this is me. This is me making a case for Cody Rhodes, who, as I say, I'm not even particularly a fan of. But as far as the match quality goes, and as far as, WrestleManias on the 10s, from 10 to 20 to 30, they always ended in triple threat matches. They did. That is a consistent thing. Cody and Rollins have a feud. Punk and Rollins have a feud right now. Cody and Punk have something drawing them together that they're not allowed to talk about because of NDAs that were written by children. But you've got one of the creators of AEW and the biggest name to ever walk through the doors of AEW. They're both in WWE now. They are going to have a feud at some point. We are going to get some iteration of Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk. So, there's an untold story between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. There's a Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins story. There's a Seth Rollins, CM Punk story. Those are very easy lines to draw. You can do that. You can have that match. Or the other option that has been going around is that Roman Reigns, and I don't particularly like this, Roman Reigns loses his championship before WrestleMania. The only way this works is if he loses it to Randy Orton. Now, if Cody wants to finish his story, and finishing his story means becoming the champion, you can do Rock Roman as a spectacle on its own, and you can do Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes as the main event of Night 1. Now, Cody needs to finish his story. Cody's story is versus the Bloodline. Well, Cody's got a lot deeper story with Randy Orton, and I'm sorry, the story of Rock versus Roman tells itself. Those are two better stories than trying to shoehorn Cody Rhodes into the Bloodline, which, as I say, mostly happened before he even came back to the WWE. You could have Rock Roman, Orton Rhodes, Punk Rollins, all on one WrestleMania card. There's so many other options other than, oh, well, if it's not Cody Rhodes going in against the entire Bloodline 10-on-1 and him still winning with a silver spoon in his ass, then I'm not ordering the pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be like that. It just doesn't have to be like that. Rock coming in, because he's The Rock, and he's fucking earned it, does not ruin the story. Because right now, all you Cody fans out there, the story is in your head. And if you think that The Rock came in for Cody's spot, then you know what it feels like to be a fan of anybody else that's not named Cody Rhodes cheering for their guy when Cody came in. There's that to think about as well. That's all I've got about that. It's going to be a transforming story from now until WrestleMania, and everybody's going to be on tenterhooks until we get to April. But that's my initial thoughts on, oh my god, The Rock coming back to WWE is so bad. Okay. I'm sure WWE's crying all the way to the bank. NXT New Year's Evil. NXT New Year's Evil. Oh man, I've only got a few points from this. They're doing the Men's Dusty Classic. They've already announced a couple of teams. Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker are going to be a tag team. Awesome. They basically came together and said, we're both assholes, why don't we be a tag team? Nathan Frazier and Axiom got together and said, hey, we're two high flyers, why don't we be a tag team? Okay. Idris Enofe and Malik Blade had a mini confrontation with Frazier and Axiom, so I guess they're in it as well. And Chase U is in it as well, but it's going to be, what the heck's his name? Can't think of his name. The big guy. Duke Hudson, there we go. And Riley Osborne, not Duke Hudson and Mr. Chase, because Mr. Chase has to deal with the school being bankrupt and gangster stuff and whatever. Anyways, we'll talk about Chase U again in a second. All the Ridge Holland stuff, because he injured Ilya Dragunov, and he sat down for an interview, and I don't usually care about stuff like this. The Ridge Holland stuff and his life story about injuries and whatnot, he injured, not intentionally, I know, I don't cast any dispersions on this guy, but he's linked with the Big E injury, he was linked with the injury to one of Pretty Deadly, I think it was Kit Wilson, I don't know, and now, kayfabe or otherwise, he's injured Ilya Dragunov, and then he sat down on an interview and talked about basically all of his own injuries, which is a weird thing. They didn't mention Big E at all, which I think is a good thing, but yeah, it's just weird. Like, don't have a guy that has injured several other people, as I say, unintentionally, not his fault, but don't interview a guy that's injured all these people and say, well, you know, I've been injured too, so it's fine. I'm here at NXT to reset myself. It's like, that doesn't come off the way you think it does. I'm sure everybody's okay with it. I'm sure, like I say, Big E and the guy from Pretty Deadly and Ilya Dragunov and everybody else involved has done all the right, like, hey, are you okay with this stuff? I get it. And it's not for me to say. And I'm not saying because it's not for me that they shouldn't do it. I'm just very much saying that it's not for me. And I think him moving back to NXT is a weird move anyway, for other reasons that we're going to talk about on SmackDown. But it's not for me, this, right now. Him injuring Ilya Dragunov meant Ilya Dragunov was not ready to compete for the NXT Championship at New Year's Evil, so Trick Williams is in the back, very disappointed. He gets accosted by Grayson Waller, SmackDown's Grayson Waller, who said, I know what it's like to be the Iron Survivor. I was the Iron Survivor too. And then Hayes pops up and says, well, why don't we have a battle of the Iron Survivors? And my buddy Trick will put his title shot on the line. And Trick's like, what the fuck? And then we get a text from Shawn Michaels that says, hey, there's another NXT champion kicking around tonight that said he wanted to really see that match. And then we get that match, and it's Trick Williams versus Grayson Waller, which was a fine match. Carmelo Hayes was told to stay in the back, and he didn't, so they're dragging out that story. He distracted his buddy for I don't know what reason, and then Kevin Owens came out of the crowd and punched Grayson Waller. This is a mess. I know they were trying to go for, if we can't give you what's advertised, we'll give you 3 or 4 other things instead. But you've got this story going on with Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes and potentially still Lexis King. I don't really know. And he's supposed to have, they're both, drawn together, Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, by the fact that they've both had these battles with Ilya Dragunov, who's not even there. So you bring in Grayson Waller for the night. Hey, look, a main roster guy on NXT. And then you want another big, not only main roster guy, but a guy who had a really good run in NXT as well, is Kevin Owens. So all these things coming together meant it should have been pop after pop after pop after pop. But it was just kind of a mess, which is really unfortunate because I like everybody involved in this. I like Ilya. I like Trick. I like Carmelo Hayes, Waller and KO, enough said. If Lexis King is still involved, I like Lexis King, the character is a bit weird, and I like characters that are a bit weird, so that's fine. But all of this coming together should have been good, and it really just felt like I don't have any stake, so anything else I've got in the kitchen, I'm going to put it on my plate and hope it tastes good. And it didn't, really, because they're still trying to do this thing as well with KO where he's got the broken fist, but he's still assaulting everybody. Just have him kicking everybody's ass. Ava in the back was kind of funny. Most people said, oh, they saw her on NXT, and she didn't even mention that her dad was on Raw last night, which is kind of a point. But also she sort of confirms that she's Shawn Michaels' assistant, go-to person, and she took on that role because a wise man told her that it was a good idea. So clearly hinting with Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman oh so subtly had Bloodline written on the back of his cell phone to illustrate the point. If they've decided she's not good enough in the ring, I think it's a good thing that they haven't just thrown her out with the bathwater and they found another role for her. Maybe she can be more of a character person. If you remember when The Miz first joined WWE, he didn't wrestle a whole bunch. He had that role as like the host of SmackDown for a while. And he was more of a talker than a wrestler. If Ava if they've decided, and I'm not saying this, but if they've decided that she's not much of a wrestler and she's more of a character, could she be the GM when Shawn Michaels isn't there? Could she be somebody's manager eventually? Could she be a backstage personality or whatever the case may be, rather than just throwing her out? Now, she's not injured, but it is very much like when Corey Graves, in the early days of NXT, was a wrestler on on the NXT roster, and then he got injured. He found out he literally couldn't wrestle anymore. And they're like, well, what else can you do? Well, he can talk, and he's kind of intelligent, and he is a big character. Why don't we put him on commentary? This very much feels like that in an age where WWE is so put down for how quick they are to let people go. This is, hey, maybe she can't wrestle. Maybe she's still training in the back. Maybe a year from now she breaks out of this managerial role and shows us that, hey, she's a completely different wrestler from what she was a year ago. But they didn't just throw her out. They didn't just toss her in the bin. They found another role for her to keep her in everybody's mind. And I think that's really cool. It comes off as a bit cheesy, but I don't know, it is what it is. And we had the finals of the men's breakout tournament. It was Obafemi versus Riley Osborne. I really like Riley Osborne. I haven't seen a whole bunch of them. Nice, energetic, high-flying, high-energy, charismatic-looking guy. They've got him doing this high school romance angle thing with who is it? Thea Hale as part of the Chase U thing, but that's sort of by the wayside. It's not the primary focus of this. The primary focus of this was Obafemi should have steamrolled him. And Obafemi did steamroll him, but I'll go back to the Rhea Ripley-Ivy Nile comparison. You kind of knew who was going to win, but Riley Osborne made a really cool showing of himself before he got destroyed with this gigantic powerbomb that, you know, please realign my spine type of thing. But immediately, they didn't let the weight of his loss settle in with the audience very much, because they had the scene in the back with Chase U where JC Jane took control of Chase U and said that it was going to be Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne in the Dusty Classic. So they quickly gave him something else to do, because Obafemi is the guy from the breakout tournament that's going to go and get a title shot. So now Riley Osborne, who I guess you could call the runner-up, is going to go potentially get himself a title shot and bring some gold back to Chase U. They bring some gold back to Chase U. Maybe the financial problems of the fictional university go away. Maybe they pay off the gangsters and the thugs that are coming after them. These are words that are coming out of my mouth because this is what NXT does. NXT is also really, really great. OTM is a bit shit, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like, OTM and scripts can kind of fuck off. But if we get Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne taking on Tony D and Stax. I haven't mentioned Tony D and Stax, but they're a lot of fun as well. When they went out to their car, when they on this show, they went out to the parking lot and they went to get that guy out of the trunk of their car, because, I mean, they're gangsters even though they're good guys. And Joe Gacy was in there, because Joe Gacy is just this weird guy that kind of shows up in places now. That was cool. Okay, you're chilling in there because you needed a quiet place to think. What happened to the guy that was in there? He's like, well, you know, I figured you were taking him over to the bridge to get him dealt with, so, you know, bye. So the implication is either he let the guy go that was in the trunk, or he threw the guy in the river for the gangsters. And this is a guy not too long ago that beat or was going up against Gallus as well. So I don't know what they're doing with Joe Gacy, but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a bummer that they had that really cool, like, I'm a heel because I'm an SJW character going, and it was really fucking good. And then everybody cried about it, so they backed off and made him a cult guy instead. I think it's kind of funny. Every time WWE takes a jab at some of the real problems in the world, they get a backlash for it. You know, friggin' Daniel Bryan was an obnoxious vegan, and how long did that last? And CM Punk was an obnoxious, sort of straight-edge guy, and they had to pull back on that. Chelsea Green was a Karen, and I bet the Karens Karen'd all over that one. And then Joe Gacy was showing how shitty SJWs are, and they pulled back on that and made it into something else. So all these people, it just makes you think that they don't look in the mirror very often. And that's all I'm going to say. And that's Joe Gacy being weird is how I'm going to leave New Year's Evil, even though that's not nearly the order that everything came in. But let's go to SmackDown, because a lot of stuff that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but a lot of stuff that I've been waiting for to happen happened on SmackDown this week. And it wasn't Andrade. We thought we were going to get Andrade on Monday, and we're like, okay, maybe not. Maybe Andrade is going to come to SmackDown and get involved in all the LWO stuff. That didn't happen either. What did happen was Kevin Owens beating Santos Escobar to win the U.S. title #1 contendership. Logan Paul was on commentary, and the entire time he was shitting on Kevin Owens and saying he looks like a kid from gym class and whatever, which is what somebody like Kevin Owens is going to get. I mean, Kevin Owens, he's not a Ken doll, but he's it's not like we're talking about some fucking jobber like Eddie Kingston. Kevin Owens beat Santos Escobar with the broken hand. Logan Paul was on commentary. Logan Paul tried to approach him after the match and got knocked out. What I like is that Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde came out before the match even started and chased away Angel and Humberto, because at the end of last year, what did we get? We got Santos Escobar establishing a new Legado del Fantasma with Humberto and Angel Garza. So there was no chance for there to be any bullshit because those guys got chased away right away, and then we got a really good match. Santos Escobar versus KO was really good as well. Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul at the Royal Rumble is the first match, and we've had people declaring for the Royal Rumble, which is 2 matches that we already knew were going to happen. But I mean, on the bump, I think they said Becky Lynch and Shinsuke Nakamura declared for the Rumble as well, so that's kind of cool. But the first actual match confirmed for the Royal Rumble is Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul for the United States Championship. Logan Paul on commentary constantly insisting that Kevin Owens can't fight for the United States Championship because he's Canadian was hilarious, because I was just waiting for somebody to be like, he's already been the U.S. champion. Remember, he was like our American hero for a while when he was being a heel. That was really good. Lashley and the Street Profits come out, and they say they're going to make an address to the audience. It's going to be the almighty new year, and they talk all this bollocks about how they're going to go out and they're going to get into the, like, Lashley's in the Royal Rumble, and the Profits are going to get their belts back, and whatever the case may be. And then we get a lights out, big on the Tron thing there. Time is up. Are you ready? Some kind of thing like that. Karrion Kross walks out. Scarlett walks out. Paul fucking Ellering walks out and joins them, and the Hurt Profits get jumped from behind by the returning Authors of Pain, and Karrion Kross surely joins them, beats them down, and stands tall. This is a lot of fun. If you guys go back 1 or 2 pods, you'll see where I fantasy booked why WWE should have a trios division or a 6-man tag division. Really, the rumor that this team was being formulated was it's not the best team on the list. I give you a big list of all the teams that are in the WWE in that pod. Wouldn't be the best team in the list by far, but finding out that these guys are going to be a faction, going to be a trio, whatever. And I mean, like, it's not like wrestling isn't all aesthetic, but sometimes it's aesthetic. And you see, if you go on any social media or on the WWE.com or whatever, they've got that one group shot of all of them, and they all just look like they want to eat somebody. Kross and the Authors of Pain, they didn't establish like a name for the faction or anything like that, but it's cool to see the Authors of Pain, who have apparently been under contract for a year and they couldn't figure out anything for them to do, which is a little concerning, I'm not going to lie. But also Paul Ellering is back, and that was one of their big conditions for re-signing, because they knew that Paul Ellering was part of their act, which, I mean, good for them. Really, really good for them for doing that. Teaming them up with Kross. Authors of Pain were good, but they were like, even in NXT, even when they did the Paul Ellering in a cage match or whatever the heck it was in NXT, I was there for that, by the way. Cheap plug to myself. They were just 2 big guys, and there wasn't much personality to them. Cross has more personality to him, and his, like I've said, when he made his first entrance into NXT, I'm like, man, when the audiences come back, they're going to really love this guy, and then nobody did. So he needed something to make him feel scary again. They needed something to give them a bit of personality. I think putting the two of them together fits both of those needs at the same time, and the combined sort of ringside support of Scarlett and Paul Ellering, for very different reasons, obviously, is going to be really cool, and I really hope, for a guy that's just been lingering out there like Karrion Kross, and for guys that we haven't seen in a while like AOP, I really hope they don't drop the ball with this, because I really think it has the potential to be really, really cool. Io Sky had a really fucking awesome match with Mia Yim. Once again, you knew she was going to win, but it was crazy. Mia Yim missed a suicide dive and ate it with her whole fucking face, so we hope she's okay with that. She did a really cool lung blower code breaker thing out of the corner that flipped Io Sky completely on her head. They got a lot of time for this as well. Petey Williams was apparently the agent that helped them put this match together, and he's been getting a lot of praise for this, and apparently not only like, hey, Petey Williams organized this match, he deserves all the credit for it, and by the way, this isn't the first, this is a long line of things that Petey Williams has put together, maybe nobody realized it until now or whatever, so I think that's pretty cool. It's not very often that we take a moment to give the credit to the people behind the scenes, because the people in front of the scenes that are putting their bodies on the line obviously deserve the most credit, but there is the people behind the people, and anytime that there's that much conversation about behind the scenes people and their contributions, I think that's worth noting. These ladies had a great match. Also worth noting that Damage Control wasn't at ringside at all, so be that as it may. It made for another match. Yet again, it was like the Santos match in the beginning, where they got rid of the possibility for shenanigans right away, so you knew you were going to get a match. Now, I'm sure storyline-wise, they're going to play it off as, well, of course we stayed in the back. Io Sky doesn't need any help to beat Mia Yim. But in reality, it just meant that we got an uninterrupted match, which is cool. In the back, later on, Bianca Belair declared herself for the Royal Rumble, because of course she did. And the rest of the members of Damage Control egged Bayley into having a match with her next week. So Bayley's going to get buried by Bianca Belair again, and I'm going to be sad, but whatever. Please let somebody else win the Royal Rumble. Please. We know the matches we want to see at WrestleMania. It's going to be Becky and Rhea, and it's going to be Bayley versus Io. Let's just do it. Just do the right thing this time. Just do the right thing this time. I'm asking you. I'm begging you, please. Butch, who's unfortunately still named Butch, needed to find a tag team partner to face Pretty Deadly, because they've been pissing him off for weeks, and he's already been having a bad time. Because Sheamus is gone, Butch has gone back to NXT, and he's all on his own, and he's having a big identity crisis, whatever you want to call it. So 2 weeks ago on SmackDown, Aldis said, find yourself a partner, you can have Pretty Deadly when we come back in the new year. And predictably, it was Tyler Bate, and this was his official call-up to SmackDown, because he's been added to the SmackDown roster. Tyler Bate is awesome. Tyler Bate should have been on the main roster years ago. Finish the sequence here. Give Pete Dunne his name back. Let these guys be a proper team. They can go after the Judgment Day. Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne versus the Judgment Day would be a lot of fun, would it not? I'm just happy to see Tyler Bate on the main roster. I think it's way overdue. The not fatal four-way, jump the gun there. The triple threat match between Orton, LA Knight, and AJ Styles was an awesome triple threat for quite a long time. And then, predictably, the Bloodline came in and beat the shit out of all of them. And then Aldis went to Paul Heyman and said, tell your boy to celebrate while he can, and then tell him that he's got a fatal four-way at the Royal Rumble. This is where we get into that one sliver of doubt where I say, maybe put the belt on Orton so that Cody can fight Orton, so that Rock can fight Roman, so that Punk can fight Rollins, and we can have the WrestleMania we deserve. I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I think you've got Orton, who's just come back from an injury that kept him out for more than a year. You got AJ, who's been out for several weeks, and you got LA Knight, who was already just buried by the Bloodline very recently. If you want to say that the three of them collectively in a fatal four-way can't beat Roman, you're burying a lot of bodies at one time. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Pretty damn sure Roman's just going to bury them all. And I mean, there's no disqualification in a Fatal 4-Way, which means LA Knight, who's, you know, got a little bit of an on-again, off-again friendship with John Cena. You got Randy Orton, who's got friends, I don't know, like Cody Rhodes. You've got AJ Styles, who's got the OC, even though he's being dicks to the OC, who they could run in, and then you've got Roman Reigns, who's got Solo and Jimmy. So that could be like a 12-person match at the end of the Royal Rumble. That could be half of a Royal Rumble, or 1/3 of a Royal Rumble after the Rumbles are over, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be the main event. Lots of stuff here. A weird Nia Jax story, CM Punk coming back next week. Rhea's still awesome. Judgment Day's still awesome. Let's revamp the women's tag division. The Rock is back and everybody's upset about it. Drew McIntyre's losing his mind and might go to the B show. We got the Dusty Classic starting. We got more crossover stars on NXT. Ava's not a wrestler anymore. Obafemi's killing people. We've got 2 matches announced for the Royal Rumble. The Cross and AOP thing is happening. Tyler Bate got called up to the main roster. Hell, this week might be the week we get Andrade back. Not bad for week 1 of 2024. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Happy New Year, guys.